My goodness, it has been quite the year for Sonic the Hedgehog, or at least the past few years anyway. This guy has made quite the comeback in recent times, thanks in part to the very successful movie series that spawned in the 2020s. This year has basically just been a gun that Sega was loading to fire at the end of the year, as not only are we getting Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which is shaping up to be amazing, but we're also getting a remaster of Sonic Generations featuring a brand new side campaign all about Shadow the Hedgehog and just everything we've seen about that game. Oh god, it looks amazing. So, in light of recent events, I've decided to pick back up Sonic Generations, as I found it at my local game store for about $12. I can't tell you how long it's been since I've done a vanilla run of Sonic Generations. I played this game to absolute hell and back in 2014 when I first played the game, and when I got my first PC that could actually play games, I played just about every single mod I could get my hands on that I couldn't play back in the day. But when it comes to good old vanilla Generations, it's been quite a long time. So today, we are gonna go through Sonic Generations in its entirety to see if it still holds up. And by everything, I do mean everything. I played through this game to 100% completion, and we're gonna discuss it. So if you are enjoying the content, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll be here day one when Shadow Generations comes out to give my thoughts, so of course, you know, subscribe, because you want to see that. You're a Sonic fan. Of course you want to see it. And if you don't like my opinions, you can join the Discord server in the link below and yell at me directly about them. But with that all the way, let's talk about Sonic Generations. So, as we all know, Sonic Generations is a celebration of Sonic's history, as this journey takes him through just about every notable game in the Sonic mythos. He eventually meets up with classic Sonic and teams up to fight the Time Eater, an evil entity that both modern and classic Eggman took over for their own nefarious plots. On paper, this story sounds really cool, and in execution, it very much could be, but for everyone who has seen or played Sonic Generations, we all know this story is practically non-existent throughout the game. I'm just gonna go over my gripes with the story now, as pretty much everything I have to say afterwards is nothing but positivity, and I know that people have talked about the story to death and back. I mean, the game has only been out for 13 plus years or so at this point, but you're just gonna have to bear with me, because it does kind of suck that so much potential was wasted here. So the story starts with Sonic's birthday. How old this makes him in canon, I have no idea, and I'm not really trying to get into that debate. Watch Xpool's video on the matter if you really care. All of Sonic's friends are here to celebrate except for Shadow and Silver, which doesn't make a lot of sense since Blaze is here, yet she's from a separate dimension. Even though Silver appears in the story later as a rival boss and then as Sonic's friend through the rest of the story, it's weird, but we do see some fun moments with the gang until they're whisked away by the Time Eater. It sucks them up to this white void, and it's up to modern and classic Sonic to blast through time and save his friends. And that's really it for the most part. There's no actual plot developments that go on through the game past that. That is until they come to fight the Time Eater, and the story ends with some more just fun moments with the cast, and yeah. That's all, folks. Look, at the time of this game's release, I know that Sonic stories were in between a rock and a hard place, but like, wow, this story has just a whole lot of nothing to it. It's relatively inoffensive. It's not like I'm going to any Sonic game for the story, but it really does feel like the story was shoehorned in at the last second to just tie everything together with animation on par with modern Family Guy. Sonic Generations as a whole is a fantastic game. I don't want this negative start to make anyone think otherwise, but on this recent playthrough of mine, I've learned to appreciate this game in ways I never thought I would, so I feel it appropriate to go through the very few negatives I have with the game to make the better parts shine even more. Because I mean, there is something interesting going on here. We see glimpses of greatness in the first section of the game, actual cutscenes taking place inside levels like Chemical Plant and the Death Egg. I mean, sure, the animation still sucks, but it's like they blew the small budget on the first section for just the rest of the cutscenes to take place inside the 2D hub world. Although, I do understand why it was like this. The game originally came out in the time where critics really had a death grip on Sonic, as this was when Sega was trying to bring Sonic back to, at the time, what they thought people liked Sonic for. Fun gameplay, and that's it. Sonic Unleashed, while it had a pretty alright story, it pretty much removed all of Sonic's friends, Tails and Amy being the only characters involved. Sonic Colors was even worse, with a mediocre story and even less characters, only Sonic and Tails. Here, the story is practically non-existent, with all of Sonic's friends having like 1 or 2 lines throughout the whole thing. I don't like it very much, but it's a decision I've come to understand and accept, he says while huffing copium. But as I've said, you're not trying to come to this game for its story. Most Sonic games, it's all about the gameplay. This story is so non-existent and inoffensive that I sometimes forget that it exists, which is perfectly okay because the gameplay more than makes up for it, as I really took the time to go through these levels, practice them, 100% them, speedrun them, They quickly became some of my favorite Sonic stages, period. When it comes to Sonic Generations gameplay, we get the pleasure of obtaining another gimmick to help sustain modern Sonic's gameplay, being Classic Sonic. We start the game playing as him, so it only feels natural that we start with him as well. Classic Sonic sports the original 2D side-scrolling platforming that everyone knew him for back in the 90s to obviously make him different from modern Sonic. Hence the name, Classic Sonic. He can do just about everything you expect him to: run, jump, spin, dash, and well, that's really about it. He plays closest to how he played in Sonic 2, which that notion is only further strengthened when we see classic Tails and classic Metal Sonic in the game, but there's no sign of a classic Knuckles. It makes you wonder how far into Sonic 2 this game would take place for him, but that's besides the point. Due to there not being any one-to-one replica of the classic formula at the time, they had to create Sonic's movement from scratch, and I know everyone hated how he played in Sonic Forces, which is fair, but I kinda really don't like how he plays in this game. Now, I really don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I truly believe his physics to be really bad. I don't know if it's because I've been spoiled with games like Sonic Mania and Sonic Superstars, as the physics in those games are the best classic Sonic has ever played, but man, I really can't bring myself to get behind this guy's core movement. He can't even roll. That's like his whole thing. He feels very weighted, and it kind of icks me as his startup speed is just so damn slow. It's a weird thing, but I like looking at Sonic's running animation while he goes, but the game is practically begging you to play mostly through spin dashing. Now, to be fair, the spin dash is awesome. Dare I say it's the saving grace in Sonic's playstyle, because without it, I think I would genuinely loathe playing as him, but the spin dash is just so fun to use that it practically negates any running that Sonic has to do. The spin dash is wildly overpowered in this game and plays a little bit differently than normal. A little bit, it's completely overhauled. Here you just kind of hold it down for a second and watch him fly. With this, you're able to skip a ton of the level if you actually know what you're doing. This makes replaying his levels actually fun. Upon my first playthrough back, I absolutely hated Classic Sonic's levels. Green Hill was fine, but like most of the levels like Speed Highway and Seaside Hill were absolutely dreadful to go through if you didn't know the lay of the land. And to be fair, that is peak Sonic level design. While I prefer levels from, say, Sonic Mania or Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic Generations does a great job at designing the levels if they were ripped straight from the Genesis games. Using the spin dash to your advantage is so much fun and even required if you want to get all the achievements. Trying to get my time under 1 minute in Green Hill Zone was so much fun. If you're either new or bad at the game, it's going to punish you by taking you through the lower routes of the stage, which aren't fun because you won't be able to go fast anymore, and they're typically filled with more enemies and more platforming challenges. Although, if you're skilled enough and take the top paths, not only will you never see the lower side of the level, but you'll also beat it in a fraction of the time. I think Classic Sonic works great in this game overall. I mean, there's quite a few buts thrown into the mix, like a big asterisk at the end, but at the end of the day, we're talking about the overall experience. Take the good with the bad, and the good was just that good that it ended up saving the entire playstyle, so I'll give credit where it's due. On the other side of the autism spectrum, we have modern Sonic, and he is just fantastic hands down. I can't think of any real downsides to how he plays in this game, and his levels are just perfectly suited for him, rivaling, if not surpassing, the Unleashed boost stages. You're able to run, jump, boost, and the like, however the control scheme is a little bit different as the homing attack is back on the same button as it used to be pre-Unleashed. And Sonic has a different drift than before, but otherwise this is the same boost formula we came to love previously, just revamped a little bit. Like I said, there's no overt negatives about his playstyle that really stand out to me. I like that Sonic plays like a truck. I guess I'm not the biggest fan of the lack of a double jump, but that's not really a huge deal. The level design, in my opinion, greatly complements modern Sonic's playstyle in ways I never thought was possible. I beat Sonic Unleashed for the first time about a year or two ago and was enthralled by the boost formula. To me, it was a near perfect gameplay experience, but upon replaying Generations with no mods or anything of the sort, I'm leaning towards Generations having the better level design. Let me explain. Unleashed level design was very fast-paced, very fun. The game was very focused on reaction-based timing, and the replayability came from how well you could execute your timing, as it was everything in those levels. It's a great evolution on the Sonic formula, but I think Generations only improves upon it. Yes, there are still moments that test your reaction and reflexes, but platforming has become a much larger focus in these levels with branching paths. There weren't very many options to traverse a level in Unleashed. Most of what you saw is what you would get, minus the few times you did get shortcuts or new pathways, but here in Generations, it's just, it gets wild. In just about every level, there are pathways galore, and you can take more than one to get you to the goal ring quickly. Say Green Hell Zone, for example. You can jump on these enemies and go through the loop or break the bridge beneath you. You already know in Chemical Plant that you can go on what you usually think are background elements. God, that's just so cool. This blew my mind as a kid, and don't even get me started on Seaside Hill Act 2. Best level in the game hands down, and the amount of separate pathways you can go through is just absolutely staggering. Even to this day, I'm finding new ways to tackle this level. It's simply amazing. You can go the normal way, or jump to the left and go on this fun side section, or hell, skip all of that entirely and go in the water to find a cannon that lets you skip the first 2D section. This is just in the opening moments of the level. Oh god, I love it, I adore it, it's great, mwah, kiss. This game not only rewards you for on your feet thinking, but it rewards you for playing the level and memorizing where things are. With that on top of actually good platforming, these are some of the best Sonic stages period, and I will not let anyone tell me otherwise. The feeling of going through and speedrunning a level like Sky's Sanctuary Act 2 is absolutely sublime. To add on to even better runs, you can access the skill shop, which allows you to gain abilities for both classic and modern Sonic. I mostly stick with the improvements to modern Sonic as I love the extended boost gauge and blast off. Makes the levels flow together better. A lot of these items are unlocked through the side missions in this game, which is an element I just wasn't looking forward to at all upon revisiting. I hated these things so much as a kid and only wanted to get into the awesome Sonic action. It's mandatory to beat 9 of these to advance through the main campaign, 1 in each levels, but since I was going to 100% the game, that means I'd have to beat all of them, and well, if we're being completely honest here, most of these are actually pretty fun. Of course, not all of them were winners, but I was genuinely surprised at how many of these challenges were actually fun, and even if one didn't hit the way it should, a vast majority of them only last for 1 to 1.5 minutes, so they never really overstay their welcome. There are some real standouts among this pack, like being able to go through these missions with Sonic's friends, and some of the missions revolve around their abilities, which is kinda cool actually. Using Amy's hammer to launch Sonic was really fun. Not all of them can be winners. Like seriously, the SPO Spider-Man swinging mission, that one just sucks so bad. I don't know who thought this was okay. When you complete a mission, you can ring the bell on top of the gate to unlock either a piece of art or a new song to use in the levels, which is something I wish more Sonic games did. There's a pretty decent selection of tracks from Sonic's history, although I don't think it would have been too hard to put even more tracks in, but hey, I can't really complain, can I? You can tell there was a lot of care put into the extra side content in this game, as when making Celebration games like this, I think it's more important than ever to have concept art and, well, other stuff like that to make it more content for the player, but for, you know, preservation's sake. It's just really cool. You know, I like looking at this stuff. Fuck Mario 3D All-Stars. Following this, we also have rival fights and actual bosses to go through, being Metal Sonic, the Death Egg Robot, Shadow the Hedgehog, Perfect Chaos, Silver, and the Egg Dragoon, all being almost one-to-one with the original fights, but eventually came up with some kind of new twist, with the Egg Dragoon and Silver being the biggest departure, since you're fighting as regular Sonic and not the Werehog, and at least in Egg Dragoon's case. I don't think the Werehog was in Sonic 06. Each of these fights are fine. There's nothing mind-blowing about them, pretty standard for a Sonic boss, but it's definitely cool to see new spins on these fights, like with the Death Egg Robot having a new section with these mines, or having to fight Shadow as a race to fight the Power Orb. You know, that one's fine. What isn't fun, however, is the Time Eater. Like, actually, screw this boss fight. It's a cool concept, but how they failed this hard to make this boss fight actually good is beyond me. The makings for an awesome boss fight it's just right there, but they never capitalized on it. And not to mention the boss patterns just friggin' suck. You're supposed to headbutt this guy a few times before blowing straight through his core, but you hardly get a chance to before he starts throwing dumb missiles at you, or just straight up running away. Take a shot every single time one of Sonic's friends tells you that an attack is coming your way. You'll be dead before the boss fight is over. Overall, I'd say the bosses in this game are some of the best in the entire series, but that's not like the highest bar in the world. It's a shame that the bosses are as easy as they are. Even on hard mode, these guys are just, they go down a little too easy. But other than the low challenge, these bosses are actually pretty great. After fully beating Generations proper for the first time in like a decade and actually completing it for the first time ever, I'm gonna have to rethink my favorite Sonic games list. This is probably one of my favorite Sonic games of all time now. I know people have been saying stuff like this since it came out, but Generations beforehand was probably in my lower top 10, so watching it quickly rise to become one of my favorites is a marvel in my opinion. I feel like I've completely neglected what made this game so good for so long. I hated classic Sonic as a kid and never touched his levels, let alone tried to get good at them. And modern Sonic, I enjoyed him a lot more, but it was only for like half of his levels. After taking the time to learn what this game has to offer, how impeccable the level design is, well, just about everything besides the story, Sonic Generations is a near-perfect Sonic game. Saying this makes me only more excited when Sonic X Shadow Generations drops in about a month from when this video releases. The level design in that section just looks to be on par with the base game, and it just looks to improve upon what is already an amazing game. And with the confirmation of more levels releasing post-launch, I think we're in for a great time. But otherwise, that is going to do it from me today. If you liked what you saw, make sure to like and of course subscribe to the channel. My goal is to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and it would just mean the world if you did end up subscribing. I also have a new gaming channel with a bunch of my friends called the Dreamcast. The link to that will be in the description. We got some great videos coming out on that channel, so I would love to see you all there. But otherwise, my name is Dylonic, and I will see you all in the next video. Take it easy and stay fresh.